Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream. Give me just 1 second. I don't know why this resets every time. So we're going to be going over, of course, the topic of your body learns before it grows. So, of course, guys, before I do get started with this topic, I do want to share a few things with you guys. So, if you're not aware, I do have, of course, a website that you can check out, which is bponlinefitness.com. Let me fix my screen again. It's still not where it needs to be. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it resets and it goes off. Okay. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I don't know why it completely goes off screen like that. So, again, guys, I apologize about that. But of course, what I do want to share with you guys is that I do have a website, which is bponlinefitness.com, where you can check out all that I have to offer related to online fitness coaching. And of course, you can check out a ton of information on there as it relates to various different aspects of online fitness coaching. Everything that I have to offer is on there. And another thing, too, that I do want to mention is that on my website, you can also sign up to my email list there, where I send out an email newsletter each and every, of course, Monday. And then there is a fitness blog that you can check out on my website as well. I won't pull up my website on screen right now because I'm kind of behind here on our stream. But again, if you want to check that out, just go to bponlinefitness.com. You can find the link on, of course, my Facebook profile. The link should be there in my profile on, of course, my main page. So definitely check that out. Of course, if you do want the link, I can send it to you as well. So, of course, take the time to check out all that I have to offer there. Another thing, too, that I will share is that I will be doing a live stream on YouTube tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. I'm going to be going over hormones, metabolism, and aging all in one. So that's going to be a pretty detailed topic that I'm going to be going over tomorrow. Again, those are every Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. They're the same time as what I do today, but I do those on Thursday. So definitely take note of that. But with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get started with this topic for the day, which is understanding, of course, how your body learns before it grows. So there's going to be quite a few different points that I'm going to be sort of discussing here today. And these are going to, of course, vary in a lot of different ways. So I'm not going to just go over 5 points. I will be going over some others, but these are the first few points that I will be sort of taking the time to discuss as we go through this stream. So we're going to go over why strength training is a skill first and not just a workout, the nervous system, your body's first adaptation to training, mind-muscle connection, and learning to feel before you grow, why beginners get strong before they get bigger, and movement quality versus weight, and why form builds more muscle. So, these are some of the points that we're going to be talking about today, or the topics for the day overall. So, let's go ahead and get started with the first point, which is strength training as a skill. So, muscle growth itself starts with coordination and not just effort. So, before size increases, your body improves how it performs the movement. So, of course, through your workouts that you perform, as you're going through workouts, the more that, of course, you do the reps in your workouts and that you repeat the form, the better your movement quality, of course, is going to be. And as your movement quality improves, this is going to, of course, lead to size increases down the road. Better technique is going to equal better muscle fiber recruitment. So the more that you focus on your overall form and technique and effectively engaging the muscle, this is really going to help in how you engage and recruit more of the muscle fibers that are going to aid in muscle growth overall. Another point you need to keep in mind is that the more precise your form is, the more effectively you target the right muscles. Of course, This is pretty much self-explanatory. The more that you focus on targeting that isolated muscle, the more it is really going to be engaged, and this is what's going to lead to more efficient progression. So your nervous system also leads the process. So how you perform your workouts is where sort of the nervous system comes in. The nervous system, of course, is allowing you to perform your movements. And when you are really strained, this is where your performance can really, kind of go down if you are not, properly rested and focusing on recovery. This can really hamper your nervous system. So your nervous system is a crucial part that's going to lead to progression in your workouts. And that, of course, comes with making sure that you're recovering properly and that you're focusing on, again, making sure that you're pacing yourself in your workouts and that you're not straining yourself too much. Of course, we do want to focus on, progression, but we do need to focus on an intentional pace to get there. Strength begins with how well your brain communicates with your muscles. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Repetition is going to build that efficiency. So, like I discussed just a few moments ago, the more you focus on putting in the reps, the more you're going to efficiently engage those muscles, and it's not going to lead to a lot of strain and fatigue. So, each rep is practice. So, you're training movement patterns and not just your muscles. So, one thing that I always go through with clients who start out is that I always have them go through a stabilization endurance phase. And generally, this starting phase that I have them do is primarily focused on mastering basic movement patterns. So, with these workouts, generally, we're not focusing on, sort of movements like if you were focusing on using weightlifting or strength training, we're generally not using any kind of, free weights or any kind of weights in general. We're focusing primarily on our movement patterns and really learning how to effectively engage those muscles. So, the more that we master movement, the more it's going to transition into how we perform those other workouts. So, for example, when you do like body weight based workouts such as squats, or you can do, I mean, there's a ton of different movements that you can do that don't require any sort of weightlifting. Like when you're doing push ups, like if you're focusing on the chest, or if you're focusing on doing, maybe pull ups, even though that does require equipment, you're not really using a lot of different, modalities to perform that workout. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory. Or if you're doing lunges for lower body, of course, as well as, again, your body weight squats, split squats, things like that can all be performed, in a body weight based, as body weight based exercises. So, when you focus on mastering those exercises with body weight alone, it's going to make it way more efficient as you perform workouts that are going to require, as you're progressing, requiring more weight, you're going to perform those more efficiently. Slowing down is going to improve your awareness at the same time as well. So this is something that I mentioned many times over is that when you perform workouts, you have to be mindful on how you go through the full range of motion and how you control the weight. The more that you can control the weight, the more it's going to, again, this is what's leading to that better muscle fiber recruitment in your workouts. So slowing down is, again, going to activate more of those muscle fibers that you want activated so that it can help with the hypertrophy, quote unquote, muscle gain in the process. So make sure that you slow down as you're going through your reps, take your time. Make sure that you're feeling that targeted muscle, whether it be a squat, whether it be any kind of movement pattern you're doing, making sure that that targeted muscle is being isolated is very crucial. Control is what's going to create tension, and tension is what's going to drive growth. Again, like I just mentioned, the more you control your weightlifting or your body weight based movement, the more it is going to help drive progression and growth as you go throughout your routine. So it's very important that you focus on not weight you're lifting, but how you move and how coordinated you coordinated you are in your workouts and how much you are mastering technique. That is what's going to matter more, and you're going to be able again to efficiently progress if you're focusing on mastering technique. So the next point is the nervous system. So I did touch on the nervous system a little bit. So again, you have to keep this in mind as you're going throughout your workouts. So before your body builds muscle, it learns how to use what it already has. And this is your nervous system. This is the first thing to adapt when you start training. So strength increases before muscle size. So the early gains usually come from better communication between your muscles and your brain. Again, keep in mind that with the nervous system, that's where your muscles and brain are sort of communicating with each other as you're performing workouts. Like I mentioned, if your nervous system is not properly recovered, this sort of affects your overall performance and how you go through your workouts. It's going to sort of hamper your performance, and this is going to affect, again, not you're not going to be able to effectively engage those muscle fibers as much when your nervous system is really, not properly recovered. And again, how you recover that system all comes down to, of course, making sure that you have proper sleep, staying hydrated. A lot of the recovery side of things are going to help with that. Improved muscle recruitment, again, with your nervous system, this is what's going to start adapting. First, your body learns how to activate more muscle fibers at the right time. Better coordination and control, again, when you have that strong nervous system. And movements are going to feel smoother and more stable and more efficient with practice. So, again, your nervous system is the first thing that's going to adapt in your training. And that's again how your muscles in your brain are communicating. When you're performing workouts, your nervous system is being activated to perform those workouts. So it's crucial that you make the most of sort of that starting phase in your workouts, make the most of mastering technique. Mind muscle connection. This is another one that I've discussed many times over as well. But again, I do want to mention it because I think it's very crucial and I think it does play a key role when we're talking about our bodies adapting. So, mind muscle connection is a very important point to really keep in mind. So, skill before size. Every exercise is a skill your body must learn before it can grow from it. Your nervous system, of course, first is your brain and your muscles build connection, coordination, and control. And this is before adding size. Better movement is going to equal better growth. So this is going to lead to cleaner reps, create more tension when it matters. Control builds efficiency, so less wasted energy, more targeted muscle activation. And then consistency is teaching the body repetition and what turns effort into progress. So when we're talking about generally mind muscle connection, and as you can kind of see as we're going through this presentation, is that all of these points are sort of stacking upon each other. So it's really starting with building the skill of your movements and your techniques. Your nervous system is being activated first, and then from there, this is kind of where that mind muscle connection comes in. So, mind muscle connection is basically how you are connecting this kind of goes almost hand in hand with the nervous system and how it works, but this is a little bit different where this is you mentally being aware of how you are performing workouts. This is basically thinking about, for example, like when you're doing a bicep curl, squeezing the biceps, when you're doing a chest press, squeezing the chest. That mind muscle connection is putting together the cue of, doing that squeezing movement for the chest or the bicep, and of course, internalizing that in your brain. So, that's sort of what we're doing with the mind muscle connection. So we're sort of stacking all these different elements together so that this can help to aid in more sufficient progress as we're moving forward in our routine. So the next point I want to go over is when it comes to beginners, getting stronger before they get bigger. So, like I mentioned, different things are sort of happening, especially if you are a beginner. So, if you're somebody who is a little bit more seasoned, things are a little bit different. So, why beginners get stronger before they get bigger? Of course, your nervous system is going to learn how to recruit more muscle fibers efficiently before that actual muscle growth happens. So, when you are, of course, getting started and when you're going through your routine and building that sort of, foundation, you're noticing that strength increase is going to happen. And this is sort of what I had noticed whenever I was, really building my routine, is I noticed that I could feel more of my strength sort of increase versus my overall physical appearance. And that's a normal part of the process. A lot of times the physical appearance and your overall aesthetic of how you look is going to be slower than the strength that you feel performing workouts. So you're going to have more improved coordination and technique. Now keep in mind, even if you're just noticing, okay, I'm getting stronger, but I'm not getting bigger, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. So again, you have that improved coordination and technique. Your movements become smoother and more controlled. This is allowing you to use strength more efficiently. So you're going to have better muscle recruitment again as you're getting started. Your body learns how to activate the right muscles at the right time. Again, your body is sort of adapting and helping you progress as you move forward. There's increased motor unit recruitment at the same time, and more muscle fibers are going to be engaged without needing to increase muscle size just yet. So your body is again sort of adapting in this beginner stage where it's focusing primarily on how it's recruiting those muscles so that you can get through those movements. Because keep in mind that your body's sort of in a learning phase. And again, like I mentioned, the nervous system is the first thing that's activating and it's recruiting those muscle fibers. And like I mentioned before, your muscle fibers, or I should say, your muscle and your brain are connecting with each other. They're trying to figure out how to make the most of these movements that you're performing. And so your body is trying to learn how to adapt to those movements as you progress forward in your routine. So the next point, of course, is movement quality versus weight and why form is going to build more muscle. So I just mentioned, of course, how you're going to start noticing strength increases first before you actually see the difference in size. But what matters and why this is very crucial to think about, because what we've discussed is mainly talking about how we control, the movement in a lot of our workouts. So the more that we master our movement and being efficient with our movements, the more this is going to transition to really building muscle and building that physical, sort of physique that we're going after. So again, our main focus is continuing to focus on quality versus the weight that we're lifting. It's still important to progress, but we first have to prioritize the weight that we're lifting, or excuse me, the first thing we have to prioritize is our movement quality. And from there, we want to make sure that we are progressing efficiently and going through a full range of motion and proper technique before we increase the weight that we're lifting. So it's not how heavy the weight is, it's how well you can create and maintain tension in that workout. So better execution again is going to lead to better results. So controlled reps, full range of motion, and proper positioning are going to drive growth more than ego lifting. Ego lifting is basically a term where you're just basically trying to show off in how much weight that you can actually lift, when a lot of times ego lifting can actually lead to injury because you're just focusing on showing off and not really, just trying to show how much you can lift rather than going through a full range of motion or rather than controlling the weight itself. So when you are ego lifting, a lot of time this is going to lead to momentum that's going to steal your stimulus. So if you're just trying to lift heavy and you're just focusing on swinging the weight, this is where your muscle fibers are not going to be recruited as efficiently. So swinging or rushing reps shifts the tension away from that target muscle. So you have to keep that in mind. So the quality of your movement is going to build more consistency overall. So keep that in mind as well. So why rushing progress slows you down? So this is a big thing to keep in mind, and I think a lot of us can really, sort of relate to it in many different ways because we do have this, sort of mindset where we want to get the results extremely fast and we want to get there, you know, as fast as we can so we can get the results and really see that overall change. But the thing is this can really slow you down more than actually speeding you up to the progress that you want. So, like, I've probably mentioned this a few times on some streams, but whenever I got started, I was doing a ton of workouts throughout the week, and I wasn't really integrating rest in those workouts. So I was, you know, just to give you an example, I was just kind of trying to get the results as fast as possible. I felt like I had to just work out every day nonstop. But at the same time, I was, affecting how my body was, being able to recover. And so I was wearing my body down because I wasn't adding proper recovery and I wasn't slowing down with my workouts. And so that's what sort of affected that progress. So what matters is taking your time as you're going throughout your routine and just reminding yourself the results are not quick. They're not going to be quick. It is going to take some time before again you see those changes. Like I mentioned, strength changes are going to happen first, and then you're going to slowly see your physique change past that. So keep that in mind. So speed again is going to reduce that control. Rushing reps is leading to less tension on the target muscle and is going to rely more on momentum, which is not a good thing. So poor form is going to limit growth, and how that limits growth is, of course, you're not recruiting the proper amount of muscle fibers, and when you're having less muscle fibers being activated, that's what's going to prevent that growth. So why technique when technique breaks down, the wrong muscles take over and stimulus decreases. So you skip the learning phase, in other words, your body needs time to develop coordination and stability before it can grow efficiently. So like I mentioned at the beginning, generally it's best to focus on body weight movements because you're mastering more of your coordination and stability. And a lot of times too, when I have clients start on that phase that I mentioned, the stabilization endurance phase, usually when I have them start out on that phase, a lot of times they're going to be a mix of your typical body weight exercises, but also some stability based movements, such as, single leg squats, single leg deadlifts, and things like that. And so when you're doing those movements that are, those single leg movements that are kind of more unilateral focused, this is going to add up as you're going into, more heavier workouts and say you start to add weights to those workouts that are more unilateral focused, or in other words, being on one side at a time. So you're building that base as you're starting out with body weight based movements. So again, this is what's developing that coordination and stability before it can actually grow efficiently. So higher injury risk is going to lead to more setbacks. So when you're trying to rush, this is where injury risk is going to increase. So moving too fast or too heavy increases strain on joints and connective tissue. So that short-term ego is going to create a more long-term plateau. And again, that goes back to what I mentioned previously on my own journey, that I was trying to get the results fast, but really I was sort of slowing down my results because I wasn't giving my body the time it needed and the rest it needed. So chasing quick progress is often leading to stalled results later on. So you have to keep that in mind. So mastery before variety. So when you're performing workouts, you want to focus on making the most of your existing workouts that you get started with. So staying in a consistent amount of workouts for a few weeks is very crucial. And this is how, again, with my clients, what I have them focus on. So repeating movements is going to improve coordination, stability, and muscle activation. So again, generally you want to focus on staying within a certain set of workouts for roughly 4 weeks. This is going to help you get a grasp on that movement and really be aware on how you're performing the exercise. So through this consistency in performing these exercises is building your overall skill. So the more familiar you are with a movement, that's going to the better you can perform it with control and intent. So again, mastering that movement is the key here. So better execution leads to better tension. Again, like I mentioned, that's better muscle fiber recruitment at the same time. So mastery allows you to place tension exactly where it needs to be. So too much variety in your workouts is going to reset progress. So try to stay consistent with your workouts for at least, 4 weeks at a time. Try not to, change too much of your routine and don't try to jump into different exercises. Focus on a certain set of exercises for at least 4 or 5 weeks, get adjusted to those movements, and then go through another phase. So that's how you need to approach it because your body needs to learn how to adjust to those movements that you're giving it, in other words. Constantly changing exercises keeps your body in a learning phase instead of the growing phase. So again, when you're starting with the first week as you're starting with a workout, instead of exercises, your body is learning those movements. So if you're constantly shifting what you're doing each week, this sort of hampers again your growth and for your body to have the ability to adapt to what you give to it. So progressive overload works best with skill. So again, this goes hand in hand with progressive overload. So even when we're focusing on these certain set of exercises, we still at the same time need to think about how we can progress efficiently in those workouts, which is a topic that I may come back to in a future stream. So it's easier to add weight reps or control when you've mastered the movement. So again, this all connects and this stacks together. When we master our basic movement, it makes it more efficient to how we can approach progressive overload, which in other words, progressive overload is how we, again, add more weight, add more reps, or add more, you know, add a change in intensity that's going to help our body adapt and lead to muscle gain. So keep that in mind as well. Alrighty, guys, that's pretty much all I have for you today. I really hope that you found this helpful, insightful, and valuable. I do have my contact information here on screen if you do want to reach out to me. Again, guys, I do have a ton of information that you can check out related to online fitness coaching with my website here on screen, which is bponlinefitness.com. Definitely check that out if you want to learn more about what I have to offer. I'm always trying to keep my website updated as much as possible, keep everything where it needs to be, so that you guys have all the information that you need to see all that I have to offer. If there's any questions that you have about anything I've discussed here today or a previous live stream, feel free to let me know and don't hesitate to ask. But again, guys, I really appreciate your time. You can watch me again tomorrow on YouTube at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, where I will be talking about hormones, metabolism, and aging. So if you go onto YouTube and if you're already subscribed, click the notify me button on that particular live stream, and it'll let you know when I do go live on that particular stream, of course, tomorrow. But thank you guys once again for your time. I really hope that this was a little bit insightful and it gave you a little bit of thought to really approach your workouts and your exercises and think with more intention and not trying to rush, but focus on mastering the basics before we move forward. So, thank you guys once again for your time, and I will see you guys next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time in the next Facebook live stream.